lunchtime news starting at 1 o'clock with the headlines here on BBC One. See you then. Bye-bye.
Let's see, 9:06 is the time. They may have had a few lineup changes through the years, but 5 decades after the band Yes first formed, their music is still going strong.
Perhaps most famous for their 80s hit Owner of a Lonely Heart, they've established themselves as one of the most successive progressive rock groups ever. In a moment, we're going to talk to a couple of today's members about preparations for an anniversary tour. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Let's see you all in action.
So, Steve and Geoff are both with us this morning. Very good morning to you both.
Morning.
Thank you.
Very rock and roll. I always like to, when we were chatting just before, we were talking about Jam, weren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Very rock and roll.
Very rock and roll.
How things have changed, eh? That'd be fair to say. Tell us about that clip. Where was that? Did you say it was the Royal Albert Hall?
No, I think it was in Bristol. We did a show about 3 years ago at the Bristol Colston Hall. Mm-hmm. So that's from there, yeah.
So
it was one of the last tours that Chris Squire did with us, and it's nice to see him up there again. Good old Chris.
50 years on since Yes first formed. What now is happening in terms of Yes? And is it a surprise that Yes is still going?
It's a kind of evolutionary thing, you know. I mean, Yes just kept going and taking short breaks, maybe a couple of years, and then the lineup might change and we get back together and then we, you know, this person would leave, and you know, it's just been a completely hodgepodge story for 50 years.
Has it been a twisty, bitter story, or has it been just one of gentle evolution?
Part of it has been...
That's what you usually hear.
Yeah, I mean, people leave sometimes because they really do want to do different music, you know, and Bill Bruford did that, and several Yes musicians have done that. They said, look, I don't want to do this, I want to do something else. But other times, yeah, there's a bit of intrigue, there can be some problems, somebody doesn't like a record we made or didn't like a tour. But, I mean, it's all a mixed bag, because in balance, it's got to go that way.
Yeah, and it's always been a musician's band. I think that that's one of the key things about Yes, is that it's always sort of had musicianship to the fore. And I think that, you know, if you look at something like the Brits the other night, you know, it's a lot about the vocalists, whereas I think a band like Yes has always been about musicians. And I think that's a great thing why the band is still going.
The Foo Fighters were recognised as well, which was one of the things that a lot of people enjoy, seeing proper bands, so to speak, recognised.
We come from that era where it started with maybe Floyd and Genesis and ELP. And there's a wealth of bands from the 70s that really cared about their music. And I saw that picture you were showing us of Tony Kaye and Bill Bruford in the early lineup. So there's been a lot of lineups, but they've all had the same purpose, to make great music.
Things have it coming full circle, don't they? Like for the moment, vinyl, for example, people are buying vinyl again. Right. Are people coming back to Yes, or kind of rediscovering them, or new people sort of finding about what you do?
Well, I think a lot of those albums were made with vinyl in mind, because that was really the only medium that was available at the time. And if you look at some of Yes's music, like Close to the Edge, was very much two sides of an album. You know, it was very much that was the way that it was done. But obviously things have changed quite a bit now. And, you know,
it's great that people want vinyl. They want something that's like, you know, you can hold in your hand. It isn't just a stream, and it isn't just a download. So, you know, we're pleased that these formats come back. I doubt whether cassettes will come back.
No. But actually, though, a lot of the money made by bands these days is through touring. I mean, it has changed so much, hasn't it? And you guys are back on tour.
We
Tell
are.
us about that.
Yeah, we're back starting on the 13th of March. We're in Bristol then, and we finish in London on the 25th of March.
And you're finishing with a fan convention.
Yeah, we got a fan
What's
convention.
this
We're doing
about?
2 nights at the London Palladium, and the second day's got an afternoon event with some different acts and some cover bands and a whole load of fans. I mean, it's been put together by is it the Scottish or the British? The Scottish fan club put this together, and we just gave them carte blanche and said, yeah, do this.
So will you be there at this convention?
Well, we'll be showing up to rehearse just towards the end of it. So yeah, we'll say hello.
You were talking earlier about the style of the music, of Yes's music, and look at some of those old clips. I'm always fascinated by crossover between younger or newer artists. And are there people who you've met, I don't know, along the way, or you've heard about, who are, dare I say, kind of unlikely fans of Yes or some of that style of music?
Well, funny enough, you mentioned the Foo Fighters, you know, and I know that they were very much influenced by Yes. More, I think, is the fact that, as I mentioned earlier about being a musician, I think that, you know, a lot of bands have, you know, certainly with someone like Steve, for instance, a guitarist might be very influenced by Steve. So I think a lot of the new generation of musicians look to bands like Yes and ELP, these Genesis, you know, the big bands from the 70s, the UK bands, as the kind of iconic musicians.
Do you know, I've spoken to Mick Jagger, who said he was never going to stop. Elton John has just said, right, I've got 3. I'm going to do a goodbye tour. It's going to take 3 years. Steve, I'm not going to say your age, but you're in peak condition.
I'm up there.
You're
Well, thanks.
well, but you look great, but you need energy to be out on tour and do this.
Yeah.
What's the secret then?
Well, I don't think that it's a big secret. I think it's a natural secret. You know, I mean, my wife and I, we went with a sort of natural lifestyle pretty early on. You know, in the early 70s, in fact. So I think we've benefited from that with understanding the balance of food, you know, and getting rid of some of the excesses.
Do you try to encourage the other members of the band to kind of...
Well, we did have a short period when
You're
Yes...
laughing.
Yeah, there was a short period when all of Yes were vegetarian, and that lasted only about 6 months. And then I carried on, and a few other guys did. But most of the band went back to having more regular food. But that's their choice. But I mean, good food, I mean, you know, it's worth having good food. That's all I can say.
Well, it's a good note to finish on. Lovely to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
It is, and enjoy the tour. Thanks for coming on. You can catch Yes on tour across the UK, as Steve said, from the 13th of March.
That's it from us today.
Have a lovely day. The Winter Olympics follows us on BBC One. Remember that important curling semi-final with the women just after 11 o'clock. We'll keep our fingers crossed for them. Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.